Okay, here's something. Well, maybe a bit unexpected. Did you know the global market for veterinary splints?
Uh-huh. Like casts for pets.
Exactly, those things. It's projected to nearly double in, well, just over a decade.
Wow, okay.
We're talking about a jump from roughly $148 million back in 2021 all the way up to over $312 million by 2033.
That's quite a leap.
It is. Now, that might sound super specific, right? Veterinary
That's
splints.
really niche.
But what a market like this, seemingly small, can tell us about, bigger global trends, how society's thinking, even the bond between people and animals. It's actually fascinating.
It absolutely is. And,
Yeah.
this market isn't just about fixing broken legs on dogs or cats.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how zooming in, really focusing on one little corner of the economy, can shed light on these huge shifts, global priorities, economic stuff, even cultural attitudes.
Exactly. So today, that's what we're doing on the deep dive. Our mission really is to unpack the key insights from this detailed research by Cognitive Market Research.
Yeah.
They've mapped out the revenue trends for these splints, like across all the regions, countries, from 2021 right through to 2033.
A pretty comprehensive look.
Yeah. Think of this as your shortcut, getting you up to speed on this surprisingly dynamic and honestly quite revealing part of the economy.
And the overall picture, it's pretty compelling. Like you said, the global market kicked off around $148.6 million in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
It's on track to hit over $190 million by 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that big jump to over $312 million by 2033.
Okay.
That works out to a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 6.4% consistently.
Let's dig into that. 6.4% CAGR for animal splints
Mhm.
over more than 10 years.
Yeah.
What does that kind of steady, significant growth actually tell us about, well, about us,
Yeah.
about the world? It's got to be more than just like fixing fractures, doesn't it?
Oh, it certainly does, yeah. This isn't just pointing to, say, a sudden surge in clumsy pets.
Right.
It suggests something deeper is going on. It really points to a global trend, an increasing willingness, to invest in pretty advanced medical care for pets, for other animals, too.
Which means we value them differently, perhaps.
Exactly. It signals a shift in how we see animal welfare, animal health. We're placing a higher value on it.
That's a powerful idea. So speaking of global, where is this happening most? Are there specific regions, maybe countries, that really jump out in the data?
Absolutely. So if we dive into the regions, North America, it's been the dominant force, really.
Okay.
Led the market with revenue around $42.8 million back in 2021.
42.8 million.
Yeah. And it's expected to stay in the lead, growing to roughly $88.5 million by 2033.
Wow.
That's still a strong CAGR, about 6.26%.
And I assume within North America, the U.S. is the big driver.
That's right. No surprise there. The U.S. had the lion's share, starting around $35.4 million in 21.
Okay.
Projected to reach almost $72.8 million by 2033. So, huge part of that North American total.
Makes sense. What about Canada and Mexico?
Canada also contributes quite a bit, starting just over $5.4 million and expected to grow to nearly $10.9 million. Steady growth.
Right.
But Mexico, that's where, like you said, things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
It started small, about $2 million in 2021.
Okay.
But it's showing really rapid expansions, projected to more than double, hitting nearly $4.9 million by 2033. And get this, its CAGR is 7.007%.
Over 7%. Wow, that is notable. Higher than the U.S. and Canada, or the regional average anyway.
Exactly. Higher than the North American average.
So what might that suggest? For Mexico specifically, maybe something about their economy, a growing middle class spending more on pets.
That's a very good question. It could absolutely indicate that. A maturing pet care market, maybe tied to rising disposable incomes, perhaps changing attitudes towards investing in pet health care down there.
So like an emerging market for this kind of advanced care.
Precisely. It looks like a strong emerging market dynamic.
Fascinating. Okay, so that's North America. Let's hop across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
How does Europe fit into this global picture?
Europe's another really substantial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Their total revenue was around $37.6 million back in 2021. And it's also projected to more than double, reaching about $77.3 million by 2033.
And the growth rate there?
Pretty solid, too. A CAGR of about 6.187%. Very close to the North American rate.
Okay, so who are the leaders in Europe? Which countries are splinting the most pets, so to speak?
Well, Germany stands out. Clearly the largest contributor in Europe.
Okay.
They started around $7.8 million in 2021, projected to almost double, hitting nearly $15.7 million by 2033.
15.7 million, big number for one country.
It is. The UK and France are also key players. Both are expected to get over the $10 million revenue mark by 2033.
Right.
And then beyond those big three, you've got countries like Italy, Russia, Spain. They're all showing consistent, multi-million-dollar growth patterns as well.
Okay. What about some of maybe the smaller European economies? Are they part of this trend too, or is anything surprising there?
They are, definitely. And some parts are particularly interesting. Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, they're all showing steady growth, just on a smaller scale, obviously.
Right.
But what's quite striking is this category they call Rest of Europe.
Ah, the catch-all.
Exactly. It lumps together a bunch of the smaller countries. This segment started at about $4.5 million in 2021.
Okay.
But it's projected to almost triple to over $13 million by 2033.
Triple.
Yeah. And its CAGR is the highest in the entire European region, over 8.1%.
8.1% for the rest of Europe. That's significant. What does that suggest?
It suggests it's not just the big economies driving this. It points to a really broad, kind of diffuse surge in animal care spending across many, many smaller European nations, too. It's widespread.
That is a powerful indicator. Okay, let's pivot again. Asia Pacific. Huge region, incredibly diverse. What's the story over there?
Right, Asia Pacific. It was actually the largest market if you look at the 2021 revenue figures.
Really? Larger than North America back then?
Yep, roughly $49.3 million in 2021.
Okay.
And it's also expected to more than double, forecast to reach over $107.3 million by 2033.
And the growth rate?
Also very strong, a CAGR of 6.714%, slightly higher than North America and Europe.
Okay, and I'm guessing China plays a massive role in that figure.
Absolutely. China really stands out. It's leading the region by a fair bit.
Numbers.
Started around $19.9 million in 2021, projected to hit nearly $44 million by 2033.
Almost 44 million.
Huge, huge. Japan is also significant, expected to reach almost $12 million by 2033.
Mm-hmm.
And India. India is showing really strong growth.
Yeah.
Its CAGR is particularly high at 6.851%. Moving from about $9.5 million up to over $21 million predicted by 2033.
Wow, another fast grower.
Definitely. And then you've got others contributing solidly, too, like South Korea, Australia, Singapore, the broader Southeast Asia region, Taiwan. They all add up to this really robust regional expansion.
Okay, so we've hit the big ones, North America, Europe, Asia Pacific. Let's look south and east now. What about South America, the Middle East, and Africa? Are they part of this veterinary splints boom too?
They are, yes, albeit starting from smaller bases generally. In South America, the market is set to grow from about $6.4 million in 2021 to nearly $11.9 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of about 5.394%.
Still pretty decent growth. Who leads there? Brazil.
Brazil's the largest yet. Projected to reach over $5.5 million by 2033. Argentina, Colombia, Peru also showing steady, consistent growth. Chile, too. And the rest of South America category also doubles.
Okay, and Middle East, that's, another region we often associate with rapid development.
Indeed, and the data reflects that here. The Middle East shows a really robust growth path.
How robust?
More than doubling its market size, from about $8 million in 2021 to over $18.4 million projected for 2033.
Wow.
And look at the CAGR, 7.096%, similar to Mexico's rate we saw earlier. Very strong.
That is strong. Who are the key players there?
Turkey's actually the biggest market in the region, projected over $4.3 million by 2033. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are also major contributors, both set to clear $3 million.
Okay.
And you see strong, consistent growth from places like Egypt and Qatar as well.
Interesting. All right, finally, Africa. What's the picture on that continent for this market?
Africa, it's starting from the smallest base, around $4.5 million in 2021.
Okay.
But it's also expected to more than double, reaching nearly $9.4 million by 2033. The CAGR there is about 5.965%.
Still growing well over 5%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And within Africa, South Africa holds the largest share, followed quite closely by Nigeria. Both are projected to get over the $2 million mark.
Right.
And again, that rest of Africa segment also shows significant expansion, more than doubling,
right,
which points to, widespread development, even if from a lower starting point.
Okay. So let's pull this all together. We've got all this data, these impressive numbers, pretty consistent growth everywhere, really, for something as specific as animal splints.
Yep.
What are the actual forces driving this? What are the fundamentals behind this global trend?
Right. So if you connect all those, regional dots back to the big picture, the source research points to three main factors. And they really do tell a story, like you said earlier, about our changing relationship with animals.
Okay, what are they?
First, simply a significant rise in pet care awareness.
Right. That makes intuitive sense. People thinking more about their pet's health, treating them more like family.
Precisely. It's not just about food and shelter anymore, is it? That shift elevates the status of pets, and owners then prioritize their well-being much more actively, much more seriously.
Okay, awareness is number one. What's next?
Second is an increased focus on animal injury treatment. This kind of goes hand in hand with the awareness piece.
How so?
Well, if you're more aware and you value the animal more when it gets injured, your inclination is now much stronger to seek professional help. Often specialized veterinary care, which includes things like splinting.
Right, instead of maybe just letting it be or worse in the past.
Exactly. It's a definite move away from maybe past practices where some injuries might have just been ignored or maybe led to euthanasia even. Now the goal is treatment and recovery.
So it's not just that we care more, it's that we're acting on that care by seeking better, more sophisticated treatments.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
It shows a sort of maturation, both in veterinary medicine itself and in what the public expects from it.
Okay. Awareness, focus on treatment. What's
Yeah.
the third factor?
The third one is crucial: advancements in veterinary infrastructure.
Ah, so the vet's actually having the tools and skills.
Exactly. Better equipped clinics and hospitals, more specialized medical devices becoming available, and importantly, higher standards of training for vets and vet techs.
Right.
As that infrastructure improves around the world, the capacity and the capability to provide these more complex treatments, like splinting, just naturally increases.
Which then drives demand because it's possible and accessible.
Right. It feeds itself.
Yeah.
Better infrastructure makes better care possible, which meets the rising demand from more aware owners.
It really is a compelling picture when you weave those threads together. It's not just about a product. It's about this whole global cultural shift, a medical shift in how we see animals, how we care for them. And it's fueled by, economic growth and changing values.
Indeed. These factors, all working together, they illustrate this growing global trend. You could almost call it like humanizing pets.
Yeah.
Elevating the standard of animal welfare worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates directly into a growing market for things like splints and other advanced healthcare solutions.
So just to quickly recap then, we've seen this pretty remarkable consistent growth in the global market for veterinary splints, looking set to nearly double from about $148 million to over $312 million by 2033.
Yeah, that's 6.4% CAGR.
Right. And it's broad-based growth. North America, Asia-Pacific leading the charge in total value, but really strong growth, impressive expansion across Europe, the Middle East, South America, Africa too.
Yeah.
And the key drivers behind it all seem to be this rising pet care awareness, a much greater focus on actually treating animal injuries with advanced care, and just better veterinary infrastructure making it all possible.
Exactly.
It really drives home the point, doesn't it? How looking at what seems like a tiny niche market can give you these unique windows into much bigger societal and economic shifts.
What really stands out, I think, is that this isn't just some commercial trend report finding. It feels like it reflects something, well, profound, really. A positive change in how we relate to animals pretty much everywhere.
Which leaves us with maybe one final provocative thought for you, our listener, to chew on.
Mm-hmm.
Considering this really remarkable growth, this investment in such a specific bit of animal care, what does this really say about that evolving bond, that relationship between humans and animals? And maybe more importantly, how might that relationship continue to shape our global economies and even drive healthcare innovations in the years to come?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to turn your research into, well, actionable insights. Today we've got some great material you sent over on the Veterinary Splints Market. It's quite a specific area, but really revealing. Our mission, as always, is to pull out those key nuggets so you can get up to speed quickly. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And what's really interesting is how a niche like veterinary splints actually tells us quite a bit about bigger market dynamics. You really see that intersection of, let's say, innovation and, well, compassion in how we care for animals now. Hopefully we can give you a few of those aha moments today, connecting the dots.
Absolutely. So where should we start? Maybe the main drivers. What's really pushing this market forward? We're definitely seeing that global rise in pet ownership. Lots more dogs and cats everywhere. Is it just numbers or is something else going on?
Well, it's more than just numbers, I think. It reflects a real shift, Pets aren't just pets anymore. They're often seen as family members. And that completely changes the willingness to spend on their health, even for complex things like orthopedic care. What's fascinating here is how this links directly to needing more splints. We're seeing more fractures, ligament tears, joint
Right,
problems.
from aging pets, accidents?
Exactly. Age, trauma, even just, highly active dogs, it all adds up, and splints become a really necessary part of the treatment plan for these issues.
Okay, so more pets, more potential injuries. But access must be a factor too, right? Getting that treatment. How's the growth in vet clinics impacting things?
Oh, hugely. The expansion of animal hospitals and even mobile vets, especially in cities and more developed regions, is massive. It means these sort of standard orthopedic protocols, the ones using splints, are just much more widely available now. And then there's the technology itself. The splints are getting better.
How so?
Well, think lightweight materials, adjustable designs, breathable fabrics. Some are even radiolucent,
Radiolucent, meaning,
meaning x-rays can pass right through, so the vet can see how the bone's healing without taking the splint off all the time. That's a big plus for comfort and obviously for checking progress effectively. Better outcomes all around.
okay, so strong growth factors there. But it can't all be smooth sailing. What are the main roadblocks or challenges this market faces?
Yeah, there are definitely hurdles. A big one is awareness and just plain access, particularly in rural areas or less developed regions. The vet infrastructure might be minimal there, and frankly, spending on pets often takes a backseat to livestock.
I could see that. And cost must be a factor too, right? Especially if you need something custom made.
Absolutely. Those high-end, customized, maybe species-specific splints, they can be really expensive. That puts them out of reach for, say, lower-income families or animal rescue centers sometimes. This raises an important question. How do you make sure this advanced care is actually accessible, not just available to the few?
That's a tough balance. Quality versus affordability. And what about actually using the splints? Is applying them straightforward?
Not always. That's another challenge, the lack of standardization and application. It really does take proper training, some hands-on experience. If it's not done right, you can get poor results, maybe even complications.
And that could undermine trust in the treatment itself, I suppose.
Exactly. Plus, you've got the patient to consider.
Ah, yes. Animal compliance. I imagine getting a dog or cat to keep a splint on isn't always easy.
No, it's often a real issue. They might resist, chew at it, try to get it off because it's uncomfortable or just annoying for them. And that's not just frustrating. It can mess up the healing, cause new problems, maybe even mean sedation or lots of extra vet visits for adjustments. Adds to the stress and the cost.
Right. Okay, so challenges are there. But let's shift to the innovations, what's new and exciting. Here's where it gets really interesting. What trends are shaping the future here?
Well, one of the biggest is the move towards custom-fit splints, often using 3D printing. With advanced imaging like CT scans and modeling software, you can design a splint that matches the animal's anatomy perfectly. This means better support, faster healing, fewer problems. It's a game changer.
Wow, 3D printing for pets.
Yeah.
And are the materials improving too? You mentioned lightweight earlier.
Definitely. Things like thermoplastics, memory foam, they're becoming really popular. They're moldable, often right in the clinic. They're light and sometimes even reusable, which helps with cost a bit.
Makes sense.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you see splints being used more as part of a whole rehab program. Think laser therapy, hydrotherapy, like physio for pets. It's not just slap on a splint and wait. This integrated approach really helps, especially for, working dogs, canine athletes, or older pets needing comprehensive care.
That sounds much more holistic. And what about the digital side? Has the pandemic changed anything?
It really has. We've seen a boost in e-commerce for vet supplies and even things like at-home kits. You might even find DIY splint kits now, designed to be used with guidance from a vet via teleconsultation. So yeah, digital access is making orthopedic care, or at least initial support, a bit more reachable for some.
Okay, fascinating stuff. So what does this all mean? We've taken a deep dive into the veterinary splints market. It really shows how technical innovation and that deep sense of compassion for animals are working together, ultimately creating better outcomes, better lives for pets everywhere.
Absolutely. And maybe the final thought for you to consider is this. How does this constant evolution in something like veterinary orthopedics reflect our wider view of animals? It seems we're really committed to their well-being, pushing tech boundaries in ways we might not have expected. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How will these advances keep changing pet care and maybe even our relationship with animals in the years to come?